Honeyshuckleex.
I'm Sackbot Barbecue.
And I'm Giggleklutz.
Okay, but we've got one time. Now we need to do it again. You know, we need to get this down really fast, alright? So, welcome to Collab Not Multiplayer. I'm Honeyshuckleex.
I'm Sackbot Barbecue.
And I'm Giggleklutz.
Alright, that's a new world record for our intro. Alright, good job.
I don't know that that's appreciated. I don't know if it hits the right notes. I don't know if, did we meet actual parameters? It just seems ineffectual to have made it shorter for no particular purpose.
Was it fun, though?
Oh. Yeah, it was fun. Alright, so welcome to our episode on speedrunning.
And welcome to Season 2!
Welcome to Season 2. We've been doing this a full year.
Ish.
And, well, now we're moving on to the next one. So thanks for all the support so far.
Happy 2024 to everybody. I hope everyone has a better year than last year, even if you had a good one last year.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a bad year for you to hope for something better. So yeah, we're talking about speedrunning today, and a lot of people in the gaming community these days know what speedrunning is, but we're gonna give a brief summary of it anyway. It's the practice of playing a game again, but trying to beat it in as short a time as possible.
Yeah. And it's not the same as a foot race. It's not the same as just refining your technique. It's not just pushing buttons faster. That's not how it works. I mean, that's part of how it works, but it's actually a very small part of how it works. Most people who speedrun already know how to push the buttons fast. Mm-hmm. That's not what we're going for. So let's get an explanation of what that really looks like.
So let's say, for example, you're playing like Super Mario Brothers, right? And you need to beat the final level and get to Peach as fast as possible, right? So you may think like, oh, I just need to be super good at the game, but there's also knowing the levels, knowing where all the warp pipes are, and how to do some very precise jumps to get to pipes you need. And through those kind of techniques, you can beat the game in less than 5 minutes.
So that's called routing, right?
Yeah, that's the route. Yeah. And then there are other games where you utilize glitches to do things that you shouldn't be able to do. So while Mario mostly plays within the rules of its game, there are a lot of other games that make their own rules. I think Ocarina of Time is one of the ones that most people will think of for how broken it is.
So, for those who are not in the know about speedrunning, one of the techniques that people use the whole point is to say, okay, this is what it means to finish the game. You start up the game, and you can get the credits to roll. You can trigger the credits. How do I get from the starting screen to the credit screen in the shortest amount of time? And sometimes you can just, literally put a code in, and then that one's no fun. That's not a fun speedrun. It doesn't ask you to do anything. But if you know how games are made, sometimes you can find weird holes in the wall that are called,
Well, typically the process of, leaving the game zone is called, getting out of bounds. But the individual ways of getting out of bounds typically have their own names depending on the community.
Sure,
so,
but I'm just talking about in general.
Yeah.
If there's a hole in the wall and you just kind of fall out of the world of the game, then you can travel along the outside and then hop back in, skipping entire sections of levels and things.
It's in a lot of games that, have you, navigating a 3D or even 2D space in many cases can, have an invisible ceiling that prevents you from flying out of the map. In speedruns, you can often end up using this as a floor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You get to know more about the world the developers live in around the game, and it encourages people to explore every nook and cranny of a game. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here, but I think that kind of nuance is important for what you're going to be talking about, so we can really think about it visually, especially if people have never been exposed to this before.
Yeah, this does remind me of one kind of glitch which doesn't come up as often, but I think is also really cool. In games with dialogue systems, often you have to not be moving while you're engaged with text boxes that appear on your screen. There are several speedruns that I know of where you can break the game so you can still walk around and do things while engaging with dialogue with different characters. One of the ones that I'm thinking of is Graveyard Keeper lets you do this.
Okay. And that's a regular time shortening technique, is to figure out how to get through dialogue the fastest. Like, people will do things like play in a language you don't speak. You find out which text boxes go through the fastest. Sometimes there'll be like movement choices where it's like, oh, if you always jump in a specific way, and we'll get into really fun ways people have used that technique in specific games a little later in the episode, but just talking about the different things people do to speedrun. One is like know where there's holes in the game. Another is to really fine-tune all of the mechanics that exist in the game. Dialogue, movement, all of that. Including which particular kind of character you have, because in some games your character will technically be taller, and have a wider stride in their steps, so they move between A to B in fewer steps because they're taller. It's hilarious that, the level of detail people put into games also comes out into speedrunning, where I never would have known that certain kinds of elves in Skyrim are actually taller than other kinds of characters, and therefore can take longer steps.
Speedrunning, can be about really trying to explore all the elements of a game that you can find, because little details like the fact that taller characters,
cross distance in fewer steps.
To most, that would be a fun detail to realize. To speedrunners, it's an opportunity.
Yeah, because another aspect about that longer stride is it's also, easier to make jumps, too.
Right.
Because you're already moving slightly faster. So you can just go, Meow!
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so those are just a few of the things you have to think of, both glitch and non-glitched, about different games. And there's actually, plenty of runs that don't use glitches. And some games even have categories for where you do glitch the game, and ones for where you don't. So typically, in speedrunning, there's the category any %. Get to the game as fast as possible, that's it. Use whatever glitches, use whatever techniques. If it gets you to the end, it counts.
And then they might have exceptions. When you get into community and really working with other speedrunners, they'll make parameters, because some glitches or techniques will just take all the fun out of it.
Yeah, for example, credits warps. What is this? Is it Super Mario World has a credits warp? In the, first millisecond?
That's not the credits warp for that game I'm familiar with. I've never heard of a millisecond one before.
But yeah, they do actually talk about frame-perfect stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, so there are some times where, that's its own category, and then, any % is, anything but the credits warp.
So why don't you just go into detail about different kinds of runs? Is this an appropriate time for that?
Yeah, I was talking about any % now, so...
Right.
The next step is any % glitchless. So there are typically, if your run is particularly glitchy, then some people don't want to sit and try to actually do those glitches. They find it more fun to actually play the game as intended, or more intended. And so beating the game without using these glitches can be a pretty common speedrun as well. I know Minecraft glitchless speedruns are very, very popular.
Okay, for the audience that has a vague understanding of what Minecraft is and may have played it a few times, can you explain to them how on earth you'd consider it done?
So there's kind of a credit sequence in Minecraft which requires you to go to the dimension called the End and defeat the Ender Dragon, and then you get the credits poem.
Okay.
And so that's what beating Minecraft looks like, and there's a lot of steps to get there, but if you glitch the game, well, people don't really like doing that, so they don't. They think it's way more fun to actually play Minecraft.
It sounds like a Minecraft player, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speedrunning can come in forms of, variants between playing the game by its rules or playing the game by your rules.
And then the people get together and they decide whether or not they want to join in which version of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of leads us to another category, which is 100%. So we had any %, and 100% means when you reach the end of the game, you have to have everything. Sometimes this means you have to beat all the quests. Sometimes this just means you need to have all the items you'd get in the game, or all the achievements. It completely varies. typically this name is taken for the fact that a lot of games have a percent tracker, and sometimes that percent tracker is kind of arbitrary, but they'll just go by the one in-game. So stuff like Legend of Zelda has this.
Gosh, I'm trying to remember the last time I played a game that had a percent tracker in it that I noticed. You know what I mean? Usually it's like I go by Steam achievements as to what kind of percent of the game I have completed. But yeah, it's been a heck of a long time.
Yeah.
That's but then again, that goes along with the kinds of games that I play, so no biggie.
And you might think that doing like a 100% speedrun basically means you're going to do all the sections in order. No, of course not. If you can get to like an end game area to pick up the cool item first, of course you do that, because then that'd make everything else go faster.
Possibly. It depends on the game. And depends on, when we're talking about 100% runs. Yeah. And so then 100%, any percent, and then they might have specific other kinds of numbered percents that are game variable because it makes sense for that particular game.
Yeah, for example, I speedrun Zoombinis A Logical Journey, and they have a category called 4%. This means you get 16 Zoombinis to the end instead of one Zoombini.
Oh.
And it actually makes a pretty big difference in the end game, because, those are the hardest puzzles. So...
Yeah, as somebody who's also speedrun Zoombinis, adding more to the end game dramatically, decreases the amount of autopilot.
So aren't you guys like a fifth of the Zoombini speedrun community?
Well, actually, there's a couple more people than when we were really active, so...
Maybe a tenth now?
Yeah.
Maybe a tenth, yeah. So, I live with possibly a tenth of the Zoombini speedrun community right here in my house. They're not super active anymore. There was like a hyperfixation for a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm second place in the world at any percent, so like if you have any questions, you can just ask me. I'm kind of an expert.
So do we need to link a place to pick up the game somewhere?
Probably.
I want to talk more about that later.
Right, I know. I'm just... I was actually getting to my biggest point of confusion, but you were, like I've seen other speedrun sets where it's like, oh, what are the categories for this particular game's speedruns? And it's like 27%. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
and then you look at the rules and you figure out why it's 27%.
For example, as well, like Stardew Valley has like complete the community center, get to the bottom of the mines, get married, all as different categories.
Right.
Because those are all very different, but not, quote, any percent.
Right. Oh, no, definitely not any percent.
Mm-hmm. They're very specific.
In fact, is there an any percent? Where would an any percent be in Stardew Valley? And if there is one, I'm gonna just put it out there that where is it in the version I'm thinking of in my head? Because, my knowledge of Stardew Valley stopped at some point, and it's changed a lot since I stopped playing.
I think theoretically what a, quote, any percent would probably be just sleeping for several years until Grandpa scolds you, but who would do that? Nobody!
Some people do, yeah. I don't want to think about what some people do. Speedrunning actually is a good place if you ever feel like, I'm wasting my life. I'm not doing anything with my life. I'm like, you can look at what other people choose to do with their life. And, this is their accomplishment. No shade here. It's just your choice. If you're making an active choice of what to do with your life,
own it.
Yeah, don't shit on yourself. Just own it. Just do it. Because you know what? You be you. You be your weird self. And speedrunning is like a celebration of video game lovers' weird selves. And I'm here for it. I am super here for it.
Yeah, we're all here to get together, play video games in weird and exciting ways. Yeah, no self-defecation here.
Deprecation.
Deprecation.
No, you said...
Oh!
Oh, no!
Okay. I thought that was a joke, but I also, somebody was unprepared. Even more than me. Yay! High five.
Okay. So...
Shitty jokes! Yay!
Yes.
So, okay, the one that confuses me is low percent. And I know you've tried to explain it to me, and you're probably going to fail again. But you want to try?
Okay, so what my mom is thinking of here is like Legend of Zelda low percents. But basically what it means is you complete the game with as low of a percentage as possible, instead of 100% where you try to get everything.
Yeah, basically, if you have a metric that is what the game's 100% is, with, quotation marks, since it doesn't always have an actual percentage on it, what the community agrees is 100% completing the game, and you try to fill that out as little as possible while beating the game as fast as possible.
Oh, so like with as few items or as few quests done.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, if you, let's say, you could beat a game using only a sword, you would beat the game using only a sword.
And no armor or whatever.
Yeah, no armor, okay. No bows, no magic, whatever. Just a sword.
Okay. And they call it low percent rather than sword percent. Why? That's...
Because in my example there, that's an extreme, because sometimes it'd be really, really weird to have to update the name of the category if people find a lower percent that you can complete the game in.
Okay.
So, like...
And if they found two routes that made really a lot of sense, they might make two new categories of, like, sword percent and arrow percent as separate things. If both runs were so much fun, they wanted them each to have their own category.
Yeah, I can see that.
The low percent is a universal enough category that just having a blanket term for it is...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I get that. And thank you. This is the best explanation I've ever gotten out of you around what on earth low percent is.
Hey, don't look at me, look at him. I think he...
No, it was what you said.
Okay.
You had fixed it before he stepped in.
Alright,
I was paying attention.
Alright.
But yes, thank you both. I appreciate that, because low percent has always confused me. Any percent, like, yeah, sure, that makes sense. And then specific percents, those also make sense. But low percent? I'm like, if we're doing it as fast as possible, how is low percent different from any percent? And that's always been the confusing thing.
Yeah. So, like, in Legend of Zelda games, like, picking up the hook shot, for example, allows you to move a lot faster, but if you can beat the game without picking it up, you would have a slower time, but you're still beating the game.
See, there we go. That's the piece I was missing, and somehow we were missing it in communicating about it. So, now... Thank you so much. And if any of you in the audience have ever been confused about what low percent is, that's what low percent is.
Hope this helps.
Yay!
Yeah, and there are actually, like, some games with permadeath who also actually come with a low percent tracker, so it's a common enough thing that's just like, oh, look, you did it with the minimum possible stuff. Good for you.
Oh, gosh, yeah, when they start putting achievements in for speedrunners, it's like, oh, goodness. There's something I'm never getting. Anyway, I can't get too stuck on one game. I need a new one. There's too many. I'm already never going to play all the ones I want to play. There's no way I can spend that much time in I can appreciate speedrunning. I mean, yeah, we're going to get into the ways we appreciate speedrunning. But, sorry. Was there more for the category stuff you wanted to talk about?
I think I've talked about, like, most of the things, because, like, there's some really specific ones, but, like...
Exploring speedrun.com and just looking at the categories, just pulling up a random game and then looking at the different ways that they speedrun it and the rules for those, it's a trip. It's quite fun.
Like, some games are so popular, for example, Minecraft, that they have to have a separate leaderboard specifically for their meme speedruns, like mine a chunk percent. Just completely mine out an entire chunk as fast as possible.
Yeah, that's just scratching the surface of how many different kinds of, at least things that are technically Minecraft speedruns can go. It's like somebody frickin' made a Doom game in Minecraft, and that has its own speedrun. At least one category.
Jeez. Did they do that just to meet the meme of you can put Doom on anything that has a large enough storage size?
This was actually more of a modern-style Doom kind of adaptation rather than the meme one, which is putting...
Wait, it wasn't classic original... Doom?
No.
What?
Okay, yeah, you might have to show me some of this later. Anyway.
The speedrunning is our rabbit hole, and we're only going to be able to scratch the surface.
Oh my god.
We're also not going to talk about controversies here, because, like... No.
I feel like we're taking a picture of the rabbit hole. We're not even going near the rabbit hole. It's like, look, there's a rabbit hole over there. I'm going to talk about the field it lives in.
We're just going to, stick a short ruler down into the rabbit hole and say, oh yeah, it's at least this deep.
Yeah, I can see about 1.5 feet deep down there, and I'm not getting any closer because, you never know when that crap's going to collapse and then just fall down in it, and next thing you know, you can't see light anymore. And anyway, sorry. Just sidetrack. So
we kind of discovered speedrunning as a concept, like, what was it, like 2015, 2016, right?
Yeah.
So it's like before some content creators kind of made the concept explode, but it was a thread before this point, but...
It's a lot bigger now than it was then, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But it was a really big deal back then, and not, it's like...
We're not the first. We're far from the first.
We don't even know the first. I don't know anything about the first. I know I came in it to what hopefully is the beginning of the middle, okay? But since we don't know where the end is, how do you know where the middle begins? We don't have context for that because we can't see the future. And I'm glad. I don't want to see an end to speedrunning.
Yeah. I can get into something later, but we found out about this through Games Done Quick, which is a speedrun charity marathon that happens twice a year.
Once, right around now, which is why we're putting out this episode right now. AGDQ! Let's get some hype!
AGDQ!
Woo! Whoop! Or
save the animals!
Shout outs to the marble with the screaming man inside. And if
Yes,
you don't
chef!
know what... And if you don't know what any of this means, tune in.
Yeah.
You won't get an explanation, but you'll have a good time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's like... So, GDQ is a, telethon. If you're old like me, you know what a telethon is. It's a telethon-style marathon where speedrunners stream on Twitch on the GDQ channel, and GDQ stands for Games Done Quick. And then for the two main ones they do a year, they donate all the money they get to a charity. And in the one they do in the wintertime, it's usually the American Cancer Foundation, or is it...
The name I remember is Prevent Cancer Foundation.
The Prevent Cancer Foundation. There we go. Yeah, because they usually try and do international. And who can blame them?
Yeah.
And then in the summer, they do one in the winter, which is called Awesome Games Done Quick, AGDQ. And then they do one in the summer called SGDQ, Summer Games Done Quick. And the summer one has been for Doctors Without Borders. And they raise millions of dollars for charity every year in each marathon. So combined... it's like they've done tens of millions of dollars. But the whole premise is it's this big hotel conference where they stream live a main stage that's doing speedruns that are set up ahead of time. It's all curated, and then they raffle off prizes, and all the money goes to charity. That's just a big party that is 24 hours a day live streamed for an entire week. It goes from Sunday to Saturday, and it's just a really good time if you love video games. The runners know their stuff, and they all seem to be friends. It's just so much of a good time. Anyway, I just wanted to say it like that, because it's like...
I remember the first time you put this on in, the living room, and we're just like, why is there, a telethon in the living room? I don't know if I had that word for it, but...
It's a weird setup if you're not used to it. With a ticker there for how much money they're making, and then they read off donations.
Well, video game music is playing.
Yeah. And then there's video games playing. But they're not playing them like people normally play them. What on earth is going on?
If you see the schedule, it might be kind of a mystery how they managed to fit so many game playthroughs into 1 week, but...
It's speedrun for you!
Yeah, I don't remember what the first game I watched was, but, I remember not being able to look away,
For video game lovers, if you've never checked it out, we highly recommend you go just hang out a little bit at a GDQ and just get the video game party vibes for yourself, because it's just worth being around.
Yeah, and if you're just going and watching some VODs, look for either the silly blocks or the awful blocks, because those are unhinged. Those are when they play really silly or really terrible games, and they're often broken as hell.
Yes. And some of them are weird things you'd never have heard of, because they were janky games that were made to promote products, like Pepsi Man. And the speed run of Pepsi Man is fun. And the thing is, it's such a party that during the marathon itself, memes are created, right? And then by the next day, after a meme is created during a live run, there'll be t-shirts available to buy based on the new meme that's created sometimes. And it's fun. In fact, we all, like, seriously, almost a third of our wardrobe sometimes is GDQ t-shirts.
Well, one of us is wearing one of those right now.
Yeah.
Usually it's actually all three of us.
Well, actually, I often save those as my nice shirts to wear out of the house. I'm wearing a janky old shirt with holes in it right now. I don't want that to happen to my GDQ shirts. I like those. I bought them because I like them. And they're usually really high quality. I mean, it's like, they're some of the best t-shirts I own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to remember, like, one of the really ridiculous runs that stuck with me from, like, this early phase. And I guess, it was some kind of Prince of Persia ripoff? I don't remember what it was called, though.
That's okay. But you don't have to remember your favorite runs. People can do their own Google searches and look them up.
I don't remember, like, most of the actual run, but there was some version of Bionic Commando that I only remember one bit of it, but it's fucking hilarious.
Is it the screaming?
Yes.
Was that the one with the wolf in the title?
No, that's a different great one. And the fact that it's like, yeah, the Bionic Commando one with the screaming, it's just like, yeah, I think you end levels or at least go through screen transitions by entering doors, and it's like, the screaming is actually positional, so you hear it fade out as it goes through the doors.
I don't know, I kind of feel like you had to be there, but... And apparently I wasn't, so I'm watching them hyperventilate here. Seriously, both of them are having trouble breathing, they're laughing so hard, and, you know, that's the thing, it's like, GDQ is a lot of fun. It just really, really is. So, yeah, when it rolls around, we kind of pass the schedule around in our family Discord and try and talk about what runs we want to watch together and that kind of thing. And so, honestly, right now I looked through it a little bit, but I don't remember which ones I'm excited for.
Yeah, I need to look through it pretty soon here, because, like, there are some games that I would just be like, cancel everything. I can't cancel everything now. I have stuff outside the house I need to do, but damn, I'd be tempted.
Alright, so speedrunning marathons is how we got to know speedrunning.
Yeah, and there are some games that have really cool speedruns, like, cool being, of course, a subjective term that people apply to things.
Can you get to a point and, like, yeah, you're cracking yourself up over there, but it's like, it's only funny to you, man.
I know. The problem is that I'm just like, what one do I mention?
Well, like the Oblivion speedrun is that whole game. It's like the longest bit there is trying to get out from under the city in the first place. And then after that, it's...
Then you get a whole bunch of drugs.
Yeah,
and then you run everywhere.
The key to the... At least I haven't looked lately. They may have a whole new strategy than they used to. But it used to be like you have to pick the right kind of character. And I think it's like a high elf.
Yeah, for that
High
length
elf for its stride length. And then you'd make them take a lot of skooma. And then under the skooma haze, they can make all kinds of jumps that you're not supposed to be able to make and can skip whole sections of the game. And, you know, it's like, oh, wow, you know, so it's like, oh, this game should take hours, right, to play? It's like, under 30 minutes. What?
Take hours to play? Hold my skooma.
Yeah.
Now give it back because I need it for the run.
Yeah, and, like, still thinking on, like, an Elder Scrolls thing, like, in Skyrim, you start to get married for the speedrun. So that way you can wrong warp into a cutscene that needs to play in order for you to beat the game. Okay.
Shaking my head.
It's like, yep, this is speedrunning, you get married to beat the game faster.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you technically, I guess, leave your fiancé at the altar to beat the game quickly.
So that's no morals %, right?
Sure.
Most of them are, by the way. But, you know.
And it's like, if you take the game at face value, usually taking unethical options can be,
lucrative in time saves.
Yeah, being a good person is not a prerequisite to getting a good speedrun.
In fact, yeah, being a stickler, being a good person in a video game.
You might be able to start a meme category about that if we get enough people on board.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, that would be a lovely meme category.
Yeah, like, okay, I know, like, in some Hollow Knight speedruns for, like, getting all achievements, they have to actually do 2 runs because some achievements lock you out of getting other achievements.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of do, like, a run where you are pretty cruel, and then they do a run where you're pretty kind right
Pretty
after.
kind. Yeah, I know. I just have to, just go like, yeah. In video games, those terms are kind of relative, It's like, in these digital, controlled environments, what constitutes kindness and what constitutes unkindness is, very different than here in the physical realm. What you do to digital people is very different. And I don't mean in multiplayer, because those are real physical people moving and controlling the digital ones. So, I'm talking about in enclosed experiences, but I don't think they have any multiplayer speedrun stuff in marathons.
I remember they played Phasmophobia once.
I don't even think I've ever heard of Phasmophobia. So it's like, that's fine, and I don't know that you need to get into it for me, but...
I know Deep Rock Galactic also has some speedruns. So Deep Rock Galactic, you have 4 people entering the same level and cooperating together to beat it. Deep Rock also hosts 2 levels a week that everybody gets to do and are the same every time you enter them. So people speedrun those together to try to beat them as fast as possible.
But those are kind of like limited time options, right?
Limited time, yeah. So there's no leaderboard for it. It's just people go like, oh, this is a really good week, you should try this one.
Yeah, but, thinking about an instance of multiplayer speedrunning as a co-op zombie shooter Left 4 Dead.
Oh, yeah.
That one has speedrun capability?
Yeah.
Okay. I believe you. I believe you.
It involves a lot of, procedurally populated, pre-made levels.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so the levels are the same, but where the zombies are is different.
Right. I'm trying to think if I am aware of anything I play that's like that. I mean, all of those concepts make sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ocarina of Time is also like a really good one to like watch on GDQ a lot of the time, because those are the kind of glitches where I'm like, I'd never be able to do this.
Well, can you explain to our audience what is so outrageous about Ocarina of Time?
Okay, so Ocarina of Time is basically so broken that you can trick the game into rewriting its own code. So you can basically make anything happen if you input the correct inputs.
See, and I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just thinking about how you can fly over the ocean backwards, and...
To me, that sounds more like Wind Waker.
You know what? Maybe I am thinking of Wind Waker.
I think you're thinking of Wind Waker.
And so, maybe the place to start, if you ever want to get into watching people speedrun, just to know what we're talking about, is look up a speedrun of a game you enjoyed as a child and watch people break it mercilessly into something that's recognizable but also complete nonsense.
And if you want an explanation for what's happening, make sure to look for a commentated run, which means the GDQ ones are perfect for that.
Yeah, having somebody, weighing in on whatever's going on or reading off donations and stuff is just... You're gonna have somebody saying something pretty constantly.
Yeah, when most people are, like, trying to get their best times, they do it on live streams, right? But they don't explain it every single time. Especially because sometimes you mess up, you reset, you start over.
Well, and they might need to really concentrate in order to be able to do this. This is a sport for them. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. It's like resetting a suboptimal run is very common when you're doing it by yourself. Games done quick, you pretty much only get one shot at runs, typically.
Well, yeah, and it's also done for an audience that may or may not know anything about speedrunning and may or may not know anything about the game.
Yeah, if it's gonna come up, they're gonna explain it, since you're only gonna get one shot at telling people what the heck you're even doing.
Right, well, most of the time the runner doesn't have to do that. They have somebody else on what they call the couch, because...
There's a physical couch there.
There's a physical couch at the convention, conference convention, I'm not sure which term you'd use, probably conference. But anyway, there's a physical couch there that has other people from the same game speedrun community sitting there, often mic'd, doing the commentation, while the runner gets to fully concentrate on just speedrunning the game.
Yeah.
And so...
Sometimes, like, the couch can actually be really, really funny, because some communities are so small that they can't get a full couch of their own community, so they just bring some random person there who doesn't know what's going on.
And then they have an everyman to sit there and ask all the dumb questions that the audience might have. And some of that ends up being some of the most fun runs to listen to, especially if you're also not familiar with the game. But there's not like a special tag for those to go and look those up. So it's like, if you come across one that you love, that might be something that you love. But yeah, go ahead. We encourage you to go to YouTube and look up, GDQ and then any game and see if it's there. And there might be something to just make you at least scratch your head.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about another funny thing that happens with the couch is sometimes you actually get the game's developers there.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking of, like, a Shovel Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had some Shovel Knight devs there, and somebody was just like, oh yes, the moles will eat him! No!
They're not gonna eat him!
Yeah, the developer was appalled. It's like, how dare you insinuate that? The moles would never!
I've never played Shovel Knight. I have no idea what you're talking about right now. But it's okay. You don't have to explain it to me. Yeah. But it's like, you can end up with a lot of private jokes spending too much time in GDQ. Just gonna say that. But the meme game is high quality. And the chat is always moving too fast to ever keep up with. So there's no point. It's just a sea of emojis most of the time.
Yeah, you're better off looking at, like, the interactive crowd, which responds to what emojis are being spammed in chat. Right?
I don't think the digital crowd is there anymore because the live one's there again.
No, if you go on the actual website to watch...
Oh, okay.
If you watch through Twitch, it's not there because they don't have support for that, but, like, if you watch on the actual website, there's still a digital crowd.
Okay.
Yeah.
The digital crowd was first implemented during 2020 when they moved the
to strictly
SGDQ
online.
in 2020 when they had to go virtual rather than in person.
Of course, this has actually allowed more people to speedrun because now they have digital support for their event, which is pretty awesome.
When it's physical, it's held here in the USA, so having it completely removes the possibility of anybody actually needing to physically show up to the event. So that's
it's encouraged, of course.
Yeah, it's encouraged.
Alright, so we love GDQ.
Yeah.
And you kind of talked about runs that you like.
Except I didn't talk about ones that I like to do.
Oh, well, no, you have not.
Except for, earlier when I mentioned Zoombinis.
You remember Zoombinis? I remember Zoombinis.
This is a speedrun about Zoombinis. Okay, so for those of you who do not know, Zoombinis is a logic puzzle game.
Early 2000s edutainment game?
Yeah, where you have a group of Zoombinis who are these little blue creatures that have different features, like different shoes, different noses, different eyes, different hair. And the differences between your Zoombinis are how you interact with the puzzles. So in one puzzle, like, Zoombinis with the same nose color have to sit next to each other. Or Zoombinis with these feet have to go on this path, but ones with the other feet have to go on the other path. So you may think, like, that sounds like a boring speedrun, and you'd be wrong, because what we do in the Zoombini speedrun is we make our Zoombinis as identical as possible, so that way we can just send Zoombinis on the shortest path, and you just move them as fast as possible. It's surprisingly technical, because now you have to move your mouse as quickly as possible, instead.
It becomes about quick inputs because the idea is to cheese as many of the puzzles as possible.
We've forgotten to talk about this whole time.
What?
The sword above all speedrunners. RNG.
Oh god, RNG, yeah. Okay. So, in games, RNG is, it stands for Random Number Generator, and so anything that has, like, a percentage chance of happening is RNG. For example, in Pokemon, there's like a 10% chance on some moves to paralyze. So if you get hit by a Thunderbolt and you get paralyzed, that's bad RNG.
Yeah, but also it can apply to anything that happens sometimes. Like there'll be set maps. And the map is always the same, but sometimes the monster that you have to fight is on the left-hand side of the map, and sometimes it's on the right-hand side of the map. And fighting it on the left side might be different than fighting it on the right side.
Yeah, and so it can be a major reset point if you're a speedrunner, for example, to have to fight the monster at all. And so, if you run into bad RNG in a speedrun that loses you too much time, just reset and you start over. So when we're speedrunning Zoombinis, for example, Because we set up the game so that you basically just cheese every puzzle, if you fail to cheese the puzzle, you reset and you start over until you get the run where you can just force your way through every puzzle. When you put it like this, it doesn't sound like it's fun, but I swear it is.
It is. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to do it, but...
It's like, RNG is this big one of those things that really highlights how you are typically going to be approaching a video game in a way that it was not built for. Because it's like, some of those RNG things can just be like, if it was made for speedrunning, nobody would put that in.
Yeah. But no, it's made to, be a little bit of a challenge, or
to add to replayability. There's a lot of things that people add to games to make them more fun to play in the normal way that are going to really mess up a speedrun.
It's like, Zumbinis has randomized puzzles because it wants you to think.
Yeah, and
the speedrun is about, not having to think anything through because that takes time.
Yes.
Yeah, we've gotten it to the point where it's like, you have to have spring feet on your Zumbinis because they walk the fastest.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Very important.
Very important.
Is nose color super important?
No.
I didn't figure so,
Just
but...
the feet affect their animations, so that's the kind of thing you need to think about in a speedrun.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, what else have you speedrun? Or is there more Zumbini content?
That's the one that, the two of us have speedrun together, right? So,
Yeah. Didn't get any of my runs ever submitted to the leaderboard, but yeah, I do have some experience with it.
And you had fun, right?
Yeah.
Had fun!
Yeah, one of the techniques that I came up with, I forget if you actually did this too, was that I played the game in window mode instead of full screen, so that way when I moved the mouse, it took less movement to move farther, so I could just move my mouse a lot faster because the game was minimized.
Speed strats!
Speed strats! The only issue with this is that sometimes I would click out of the window and that would pause the game, so I had to manage how small could I go but still click the buttons reliably.
Womp womp womp.
Yeah.
These are the things you have to think about in a speedrun.
Yep. I mean, some people would just go, why don't you just turn the mouse sensitivity up? And I say, because I play more games than just Zumbinis. But other games I've speedrun, I have speedrun this game called Epic Dumpster Bear 2.
Did you find that in an awful block?
I did find that in an
that
awful block.
That sounds like an awful block game.
Yeah, so in this game you basically play as a bear who goes on a rampage because people keep polluting the wilderness, but it's all made with basic, Unity assets. I swear the platforming is really fascinating, but it's a wild ride. I haven't speedrun it in years, but it was pretty fun. I've also made a speedrun. I made the speedrun for this game called Perspectrum, and it's a puzzle platformer where you can interact with these sort of little totems to change the states of liquid around you. So you can turn water into ice, lava, or acid and solve puzzles that way.
So it's either liquids, you can go through it, it's solid, so you can stand on it, lava to burn you, and then acid if you want to get high.
No. Basically, acid and lava are about the same, but acid can melt stuff, but lava just kills you. So, in order to beat that game, you need to get a certain number of collectibles, and then beat a sort of platforming gauntlet, and so I kind of had an interesting time routing which of these collectibles would be fastest to pick up, and so I made a speedrun for it. And so it's there on speedrun.com if you want to check it out. I am not the world record holder, because I was kind of into this speedrun, and I was like, it'd be interesting if I could get somebody else to play it. So I posted in someone's Discord, hey, I play this game, it's $2 if you want to check it out. And so somebody did, and it's just did you know that this glitch exists? Did you know this thing exists? And then took the world record from me.
But yeah, if you want to know the ins and outs of any game, ask the speedrunners. Or create a speedrun for it, and then ask them.
Yeah, the speedrunners are one of the two. The other one is the glitch hunters for those games.
The overlap there is huge.
Yeah, but there are,
Sure. There are glitch hunters who do not speedrun and speedrunners who, they utilize known glitches but have no interest in hunting for them.
Yeah,
Sure.
or knowing even how they fully function. Because there are some times where it's just like, oh, I just know if I push this button now, I clip through the wall.
Right. Clip. That's the term I was looking for earlier. It's just I was trying to help people who have no idea what anybody's talking about to be familiar with the terms. It's like, you want to know what a percent run is, you want to know what a glitch is. Clip. In a video game, when you fall through a wall into who knows what on the other side, they call that a clip. That's what I...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something has collision, it's supposed to be solid. It's called clipping if you go through it.
Right. Yes, it applies to everything, but most relevantly, the boundaries of the world.
But anyway, that was the term I was looking for. It's in the speedrun vocabulary sheet. I wanted to make sure we hit percent, RNG, and clip was the term I needed, but I couldn't remember, which is, yeah. I'm trying to be here for other moms who are trying to sit there with their kids and have no idea what's going on.
There's an audience. There's an audience for that. Let's go!
Right, exactly. Because I think moms might not mind watching people play video games for fun with their kids, for charity.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Let's get some love, man. Alright, so speaking of that, are we ready to talk about why people speedrun? I mean, obviously it sounds like it's a lot of fun, but...
Yeah, like, it's really interesting to boot up a game and then go into it with, like, a new goal in mind, having already played the game. Like, yeah, when I did boot up Per Spectrum, and I was just like, well, what movement would get me to the end fastest? It became a new kind of game. Like, there's a collectible in the opening room, for example, that you can just immediately grab, but if you wait a second and switch the liquid state in that room to water, there's actually 2 collectibles there. So it's, you just immediately leave a collectible in your starting room and come back for it later. And small details like that feel very different.
So it's getting to know a game more intimately is one of the poshies. The joys of speedrunning.
Do you have a joy of speedrunning?
Well, it's just, something to, studying something like that to, hone your performance. You can end up with a rush of just getting a whole lot of, difficult stuff right in sequence.
Mastery.
Yep. That's what I was going to say.
There is definitely something to getting good.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's a whole, I guess... One of the neat things about speedrunning is, as far as that goes, is you kind of get to choose which part of it would best suit either the way you want to grow or a talent you already have, right? You could focus on your strengths, or if you're into grinding for self-mastery, you can focus on your weaknesses and help this build up something that you'd like to be better at. But yeah, it gives you a new window into something that you already are familiar with. But what about community?
Yeah, like, that's definitely something I think, looking in from the outside, you don't understand at first, because you see these leaderboards on speedrun.com, and you think, like, okay, so this is how we keep track of all the scores. And, I mean, that is one of the biggest parts of it, sure, but it's a community organizing site. It's not necessarily just a leaderboard, because you can set up a leaderboard in Google Docs, but you can't necessarily make a forum in a Google document. So that's what speedrun.com provides. It's a leaderboard and a forum, and you can just go and make your own right now. If there's a game that you want to speedrun, it doesn't have its own community, you could just go right now, record yourself playing the game quickly, and post it to speedrun.com. And boom, you have a leaderboard and you have a forum.
And what people might not understand about why that forum piece is so important is, unlike I don't know that much about esports, so I'm going to use regular sports as an example, but it might apply also to esports, is they seem like they're really hyper competitive, where the person trying to be number 1 on the leaderboard may be the arch rival of the person who's number 2, and it's a fight between them. And so your techniques of how you get better are completely secret. You know, you don't want to give your secrets away. And speedrunning is the complete opposite. You give your secrets away immediately because someone else might be able to do it better than you, which will teach the whole community a whole new technique that lets everyone run faster. And they all just, because they have this shared love of the game also, which I'm sure sports do too, but... I don't know, it just seems to diffuse some of the hyper-competitiveness that might be in other places where you're doing it for prizes and prestige.
Yeah. Typically, like, if you are the one who discovers a new glitch or something, a lot of the time people do show it off to the community by immediately getting their PB first. So they're just like, look at how much I've improved, or I got world record for 2 seconds.
Right. And then the neat thing communities usually do is they name the new technique, route, or whatever after you, or they name it what you want to name it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like the science community often does.
Mm-hmm. There is a kind of funny story about one. I think in Mario Odyssey, there was, like, this guy who was discovering tricks and stuff, and he's like, I don't care what you guys call it, just don't name it after me. So they named his techniques after other people. And I'm pretty sure that's how Snowdram got its name. It's named after somebody in the community who is not the person who discovered it.
Well, you know, if there's one person finding all the techniques, it's kind of ridiculous to have, you know, the time marcher clip, and then the time marcher left-hand route, and then the time marcher time trick, and then, you know...
Yeah, that gets very confusing.
Exactly, so if there's somebody who's dominating the finding, you know, you have their technique wizard in there.
New name for glitch hunters, technique wizards.
Don't name it after me. Anyway.
Giggleklutz, the naming wizard.
No. Gosh, no. That is a hat I do not want to wear. So, I don't know, we've talked for a while now. We've been pretty hyped.
We didn't speedrun this episode.
No, but we wanted to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Right, there is one more essence of community that I do think is people don't really see from, like, the outside, but if you're a jerk... and you're really rude, you know, you can get banned from these communities, which could take your score off the leaderboard. So, like, people may know that, like, technically this is the world record, but you're not there. So, like, it's fascinating to know that, like, you know, there has to be, like, a level of respect. If you are here to just be hyper-competitive, if you are burning all your bridges, what does your score matter if nobody likes you?
Right. Because they like hanging out more than they care who actually is number one.
Mm-hmm. And there are some leaderboards where it's just super hyper-competitive at the top, and everybody else is just like, whoa, let's go with my middling time, I'm so proud.
Yeah.
And those are honestly really sweet.
Yeah, it's just kind of a thing where, you know, on GDQ, Games Done Quick, they'll just, like, a lot of people, when they're talking about their speedrunning community, will say it's one of the best out there, and I believe all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, they're on this international broadcast, right? And they're like, if you love this game too, please join our community. Most communities are always looking for new people. They're always looking to encourage more people to love the game that they love with them and hang out with them and learn the techniques. And they're happy to do little tutorials to teach you how to do each of the individual tricks. And it reminds me of some kids that go to skate parks and they like to help kids who are struggling with learning how to skate with their first skateboard. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
where it's like, it's so much fun to show off your knowledge to somebody else who's just starting out. And that's fun for them too. So it's like these communities are often really welcoming and they encourage this. Part of why we do the podcast is to let everybody who's not that familiar with video games know that there's a whole world out there that encompasses all kinds of community that you would have no idea exist unless someone introduced you.
Yeah, like, I speedrun Celeste. Very, very little. I'm not on the leaderboard. Don't look me up. But I streamed it a couple times, and pretty much every time I do, somebody from the speedrunning community finds me and goes like, oh, did you know about this thing? Or it's like, oh, we have a resource on this.
Very active speedrun community, Celeste.
Oh, yeah.
Very active. But that game was built to encourage people to do things like that. That game is built for mastery no matter where your starting level is.
Yeah.
So,
like,
yeah. Someday you're going to probably talk here more about Celeste.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So any final wrap-ups for speedruns for everybody?
Just try. Just try one. Trust me, looking in from the outside is entirely different from actually doing it in, like, the best way. Just try.
And if nothing else, watch. Because it's a good time. I highly encourage you to watch a GDQ.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's like, there's just something incredibly fascinating about speedrunning. It's just not quite like anything I've just in general seen before.
Yeah.
It's very nature, the communities that surround it.
Yeah, I'm not saying there's no toxicity to be found.
Oh, yeah.
That's the world. That's people. And that's fine. Some people are actually into that. More power to them. Just go to another community. You can start one. And how long did it take someone to join your Perspectrum?
I had to share it in a Discord, but then, like, within 2 days,
they
beat my record.
Right. So, if it doesn't exist, create it. And you can have one for yourself. So, anyway.
That's been Collab Not Multiplayer on Speedrunning. If you like this episode, feel free to follow us, subscribe.
Comment away. We enjoy feedback.
Yeah, like, if you do have a favorite speed game, what is it? And where can I watch your run?
Yeah, you got speedrun enthusiasm, share it. Love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate your time.
Oh, this is actually probably, like, the best video to ever get first on. Get first.
Anyway, I'm Giggleklutz.
I'm Honeyshuckleex.
And I'm Zachbot Barbecue.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.